The year was 334 BC, and the young king of Macedon stood at the edge of madness. Alexander was 22 years old when he made the decision that would either immortalize him or destroy everything his father had built. With barely 35,000 men, he prepared to cross the Hellespont and challenge the Persian Empire, the most formidable war machine the ancient world had ever known. But here's what made this moment truly desperate. Alexander's treasury was nearly empty. His closest advisor, the battle-hardened General Parmenion, had openly called the invasion strategic suicide. The math was brutal and unforgiving. Across that narrow strip of water waited Darius III, ruler of an empire that stretched from Egypt to India, commander of 500,000 soldiers and possessor of wealth that made Greek cities look like villages. Alexander couldn't even afford to pay his army beyond a few months. One major defeat, one tactical miscalculation, and the Macedonian dream would shatter like pottery against stone. This wasn't just about one young king's ambition. This was a gamble with the fate of Western civilization itself. If Alexander failed, Macedon would collapse. The Greek city-states, barely held together under his father's forced unity, would explode into rebellion. Athens, Thebes, Sparta, all of them were watching, waiting for the moment when this arrogant boy would fall so they could reclaim their freedom over his corpse. But the stakes reached even deeper into the soul of the Greek world. For generations, Persia had been the nightmare that haunted Hellenic memory. They had burned Athens to ashes, desecrated sacred temples, enslaved entire populations. The scars of those invasions still bled in Greek consciousness. Now, an untested king was betting everything on a single desperate throw of the dice. If he lost, there would be no second chance, no retreat, no mercy. Greece would become a Persian province once more, and Alexander's name would be whispered as a cautionary tale of hubris and destruction for 1,000 years. Yet something extraordinary happened on the beaches of Troy that would change everything. As Alexander's ships touched Asian soil for the first time, he didn't rush to battle. Instead, he made a pilgrimage to the tomb of Achilles, the legendary warrior of Homer's Iliad. Standing before that ancient grave, Alexander didn't pray for victory. He made a declaration that transformed the entire nature of his campaign. He announced that this war would not be merely a military expedition. This would be a sacred mission to avenge the desecration of Greek temples, to liberate the Greek cities of Asia Minor, and to write his name alongside the heroes of myth. In that moment, Alexander turned a risky invasion into an epic crusade. He gave his soldiers something more powerful than gold. He gave them a story worth dying for. He transformed himself from a young, unproven king into a living legend marching in the footsteps of Achilles himself. What followed was a masterclass in audacity and tactical brilliance. At the Granicus River, Alexander faced his first major test, a Persian force positioned on high ground with cavalry that outnumbered his own. Every military manual would have advised caution, delay, perhaps negotiation. Alexander charged directly into the river, leading from the front, his white-plumed helmet making him a target for every Persian archer. He nearly died that day. A Persian noble's sword shattered against his helmet. Another blade was moments from splitting his skull when his companion Clytus saved his life. But Alexander won, and with that victory, he unlocked something unstoppable. City after city opened their gates. He liberated Greek colonies that had lived under Persian rule for 2 centuries. He adapted, learned, evolved. When he encountered the legendary Gordian knot, an impossibly complex puzzle that prophecy said only the future ruler of Asia could untie, Alexander didn't waste time with traditional solutions. He drew his sword and cut it in half. The message was clear. He would make his own rules. Yet the true test still waited. At Issus, Darius himself took the field with a force that outnumbered Alexander's army 3-1. The Persian king brought his family, his treasury, his entire court, so certain was he of victory. The battle raged with desperate intensity, but Alexander did something that changed warfare forever. Instead of fighting along the front lines, he identified where Darius commanded and drove straight toward him like an arrow toward a hart. It was reckless, brilliant, and terrifying. And then came Gaugamela, the battle that would decide the fate of empires. Darius assembled the largest army ever seen in ancient warfare. He chose the battlefield himself, even leveled the ground to give his scythed chariots maximum advantage. He had superior numbers, better position, home advantage. Every rational calculation predicted Persian victory. The armies met at dawn, and what unfolded was nothing short of legendary. Alexander's phalanx held against impossible odds, while he executed a maneuver so daring it seemed divinely inspired. He created a gap in his own lines, a deliberate weakness that drew Persian cavalry into a trap. Then, as he had at Issus, Alexander led his companion cavalry in a thunderous charge directly at Darius's position. The earth shook, the sky filled with dust and screams, and when that dust settled, Darius was fleeing, his empire shattering behind him like a mirror struck by stone. The fall of Persian power sent shockwaves across 3 continents. An empire that had stood for 2 centuries collapsed in 3 years. Greek culture, philosophy, and art began to flow eastward, mixing with Persian, Egyptian, and eventually Indian traditions. This fusion, what historians would call Hellenistic civilization, shaped human culture for a millennium. Cities rose with Greek theaters and Asian temples side by side. Knowledge from Alexandria to Babylon began cross-pollinating in ways that would eventually give birth to modern science and philosophy. But perhaps Alexander's greatest legacy was proving that the impossible is merely the untested. He showed that vision combined with courage could reshape reality itself. He demonstrated that one person, refusing to accept the limitations imposed by conventional wisdom, could alter the course of human history. So what do you think? Was Alexander a visionary hero or a reckless gambler who happened to win? Could his strategy work today, or was he simply a product of his unique moment in history? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story of impossible odds and world-changing courage resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the ancient world that still echo in our lives today. Because history isn't just about the past, it's about understanding what humans are truly capable of when they refuse to accept impossible as an answer.